How's it going, everyone? I'm Jakejames Lugo, and welcome to the channel, where you'll find some of the most fair and honest game reviews out there. And this time, I'm gonna need you all to strap in because, oh boy, are we gonna go places with this review. Many of you know I love action platformers, especially the Ghosts and Goblins series, which I've played here on this channel before. So it was only natural that I check out the latest entry, Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. So get comfortable because, oh man, I can't even, I'm so giddy to start this with y'all. And let's talk about this game, Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. Or should it be Resurrection? Just watch the review, okay? It's been a while since we last saw Arthur in action against the hordes of evil. He's been in other Capcom titles like Marvel vs. Capcom, but the last real Ghosts and Goblins game we had was on the PSP years ago. But now, we have something new. Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection is the latest entry of the series for Nintendo Switch. It's a reimagining of the first two games, but blended together into one package. Stages and monsters from the original arcade and console games get a total makeover with a fresh new art style. Arthur and the world around him have this colorful and cartoony vibe, but with a dark twist that the series is known for. The story of Resurrection is exactly what you'd expect if you've played any of the Ghosts and Goblins games before. The Princess of the Land, also known as Princess Prin, is kidnapped by the minions of the demon lord Lucifer and taken to the Dark Realm. Without hesitation, Arthur grabs his armor and springs into action, fighting monsters of all kinds as he makes his way into the demon realm to confront Lucifer. Can he survive the onslaught of ghosts and goblins to save the princess? With a little mettle, patience, and a whole lot of heart, maybe he can actually do so. As far as story stuff is concerned, there really isn't a whole lot to say about the story of Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. It pretty much is a retelling of the first two games. But what is interesting to really dive into is the art style of Resurrection, which I really like. I have to say, this kind of reminds me of a few indie games or like those Flash style games you would see online, and it really works for the cartoony and colorful style that Resurrection is going for. It has like a charm to it that I think just works out pretty well, especially with the reimagining of both the stages and some of the enemies that you run into. Another thing I do like is that there's a few instances where we get to choose which levels that we play, either from the original Ghosts and Goblins or from Ghouls and Ghosts. I actually like that, and it gives us more stages to play through, even though when you're going from beginning to end, you're only going through about 5 or so stages. Personally, for me, I wish that we did get some more instances like this, where we got to pick through a few more stages, kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure for this style of game, but for the stages that we did get, I think that it's pretty cool. I think that it's something that's really neat, and it pays homage to both games that it's reimagining. I also do have to say that the music in this game does sound pretty good. It's just a collection of tracks that's remixed from both Ghosts and Goblins and Ghouls and Ghosts, and none of them sound like any big bangers. They're not really going to change the way that you listen to this series, but they do sound good, and again, it works well with everything else going on for it. Alright, now that we got through all of that, let's talk about the big thing that everybody wants to dive into. I think I'm gonna need a little help with this one, guys. Let's finally talk about the gameplay. Okay, you might want to sit down for this, because this game is hard. I can't stress how difficult and frustrating Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection can really be. If this is your first Ghosts and Goblins game, then oh boy, are you in for a rude awakening. Even for someone like me who has played the previous games before, will have a tough time with Resurrection. Like his previous adventures, Arthur can move around and jump while attacking with various weapons you find in a stage. Most enemies take about 1 or 2 hits to defeat, but others will power right through your attacks and mess you up. Get ready to see those infamous boxers a whole lot before you find yourself turned into bones very frequently. The stages in Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection are really meant to test your patience and frustrate the hell out of you. And my god, did they get on my nerves. You always have to expect the unexpected, but this game could get ridiculous. There are so many random enemies or stage hazards that constantly force you back to a previous checkpoint. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I lose a life because of things like this. It gets borderline unfair. And mind you, this is while I'm playing on the standard difficulty. It's seriously that freaking hard. I had to lower my difficulty setting just to get through most sections of the game. There's just an overbearing amount of enemies and hazards that are just gunning for you, to the point where you don't even have enough time or leeway to react to them. What I really hate is how the game has this nasty habit of putting you into situations where you have no choice but to get hit by something, often forcing you to lose a life and restart at the nearest checkpoint. I will say that there are plenty of checkpoints to restart from, and you have an unlimited number of lives, but it's just so annoying to have to replay the same areas over and over and over again. For real, this is seriously not for the faint of heart or for those that severely lack patience. And if you think that this is bad, oh man, I haven't even gotten to the bosses yet. This is another thing that I had a hard time with. The bosses in Resurrection can be defeated if you follow their patterns and attack them when they're vulnerable. That's pretty straightforward. But things get really crazy when the bosses you face have these random changes to their patterns and surprise you with tactics that you almost never see coming. I played a lot of Ghosts and Goblins games, and as challenging as they are, the bosses in those games never felt unforgivingly cheap as these do. Some of the most frustrating battles I had were with the Fire Cerberus, the Dragon in the Sky, and the Giant Fly towards the end. It took me a while to get the patterns down and find out what I could do to avoid getting hit and counterattack. I was able to defeat them, but only after raging at my TV so hard with frustration the entire time. These fights are not impossible, but good God are they hard as hell. Something that Resurrection introduces into the Ghosts and Goblins formula is the introduction of the Umbra Tree, which allows you to find these little bees that are floating around in the stages and use them to upgrade yourself to get different abilities and different types of style of magic to use while you're running around a stage. This is cool because you get a selection of different powers which are pulled directly from both Ghosts and Goblins and Ghouls and Ghosts. That's pretty darn cool. However, my biggest problem with the magic is just how inconsistent it can be. Unless you're really powering up certain spells to their max level, you're not going to be able to damage certain bosses or certain enemies that you run into, which is a huge problem, especially in stages that are ridiculously difficult. Like, I cannot understate just how difficult all these stages, this entire game, really is. And the magic at times just doesn't help with that. A perfect example of this is the lightning magic you get, which is from Ghouls and Ghosts, if you guys remember my review of that game. That's pretty cool, and in that game, it could damage anything. However, in this one, you need to power it up to max in order to damage most of the enemies, unless they're really small skeletons or just some of those little lesser known enemies. You won't be able to damage bosses, you won't be able to damage any of those flying gargoyles, or none of that stuff, which kind of defeats the purpose of even upgrading it in the first place, at least starting to, because at least do some damage, you know what I'm saying? Don't even my own abilities work against me. It just feels so annoying to deal with that. And then when you want to get to certain spells that you want to use that actually are helpful right from the get-go, you have to go through all these spells. You have to spend the bees, or at least the little wasp and stuff that you find in order to get to them. And it's come on, man. How many hurdles are you going to make me jump through in order to get from point A to point B? It's just so annoying, man. In this game's defense, however, I will say that the controls themselves are very responsive, they're very solid, even though it does feel like in some instances I don't have a lot of reaction time, or at least enough leeway to react to things that are coming at me. But when I'm actually moving around, when I want to go a specific direction, or when I want to attack or jump, all that stuff is incredibly responsive, and that feels good to play, despite everything else being incredibly difficult to deal with. And speaking of which, let's talk about something else that really grinded my gears. Something that, even as a fan of this series, I'm just so mad at. I'm feeling a certain type of way about this. Now here's my biggest problem with this game. Normally with Ghosts and Goblins, you have to beat the game twice to get the true ending. This has been a trope for the series for years. If you want a good example of this, go check out my playthrough of Ghouls and Ghosts that I did here on the channel. You'll see it happen in real time. Anyway, Resurrection does something similar, but it goes overboard with what you need to do in order to achieve the true ending. When you beat the game the first time, you open up the Shadow stages, which are tougher versions of the previous levels that you completed the first time around. They have remixed enemies, new hazards, and are just overall even tougher than before. But nope, that's not enough. Nope, the game throws another curveball at you. Not only do you have to defeat all these stages, but then you have to go back to each stage and find a special chest to open and defeat an enemy that pops out of it. And then you need to find those special pits that are hidden throughout each of the levels in order to open up the true final boss that's right after Lucifer. You gotta do this for every single stage while also dealing with all the crazy stuff within them. And then get this, you have to do it on a harder difficulty setting. Nope, 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 not doing that. I'm done, I'm finished, not happening, absolutely not, hell no, 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 no. I don't even need to explain to all of you just how frustrating this can be. I'm all for playing through very difficult stuff, but once you start to impact the fun factor of a game, then I have a real problem with that. After going through so much already just to get to the shadow stages, it feels like overkill forcing me to find all this other stuff just to get the real final ending. Some people might find this as another challenge to overcome, but I think Capcom maybe went a little bit too far with this one. This brings me to an interesting point that I brought up over on my Twitter page. If you're not following me on Twitter, go follow me over there, links in the description. But certain games that tout themselves off at being so difficult and challenging usually sacrifice their fun factor in favor of that. And personally for me, that really kills the experience. Don't get me wrong, I played so many different styles of difficult games within my years. The Castlevania series, the Mega Man series, and many others that are out there. I understand that a good challenge could be really fun at times, but when that challenge becomes so tedious, so frustratingly difficult, so annoying, and almost borderline unfair, then the fun factor is gone for me, and I'm pretty sure many of you out there and many others similar to yourself are probably feeling the exact same way with games like this, where it's just trying to be difficult and trying to accomplish the point of pissing you off as opposed to making you kind of break past that barrier of challenge. To me, that's when a game has failed to accomplish what it originally set out to do. So after taking everything into account, can I recommend that you guys check out Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection on the Nintendo Switch? I feel like people that have already played the Ghosts and Goblins series before are already either playing this game or have already decided to get this game. But for those people that have never really dived into the series before, I can't really recommend this. I don't think this is a great game to really kind of have as your first experience with Ghosts and Goblins. I find it to be very, very difficult to deal with, even on some of the more easier difficulty settings. On top of that, it just becomes super frustrating where you just have to take a step back from playing the game. I've played so many of the other Ghosts and Goblins games before, and they were never this frustrating in the past. Even though I did feel that they were challenging, they have this reputation for being very difficult, but not like this. This one feels like there's all these little factors that are just trying to get at you and trying to really prevent you from enjoying this game. Even though it says that it's trying to be difficult, it says it's trying to be challenging, but it doesn't really come off that way. If you've already made peace with that and you're just going to dive into something like this regardless, then I feel like you could get some enjoyment out of Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. The visuals are pretty good, the music's pretty good, the controls are very solid, and if you already know the series at heart or have some sort of like familiarity with it, then you're going to appreciate some of the stuff that's reimagined for Resurrection. And there you have it, everyone. Those are my thoughts about Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection for the Switch. I wanted to like this game so much more than what I actually did. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that this game made me rage and so mad at times, I would probably say it's a lot more enjoyable than what I put here now. It's just, I love Ghouls and Ghosts. You guys have seen me play that game before, and I've even reviewed it here on the channel in the past. And I just find that to be so fun. Like, it's challenging, it's hard, but it's a good fun type of hard. It's not like trying to gnaw at you, if that makes any sense. But either way, like any other game that we review on this channel, that's just my opinion about Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. Let me know your own thoughts about this game down below in the comments section. Tell me, are you a fan of Ghosts and Goblins? Have you played any of the other games before? What are some other games that are like super difficult, that are like borderline, like rage-inducing? Talk to me about all that stuff down below in the comments section. Thanks a bunch for watching the video. I really appreciate it a ton. I'll have more videos for you to enjoy here on the side that I know you'll love. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon too. Don't forget to visit my Patreon linked below for early access to new videos every week, and join the Discord server too. It's linked in the description box below. You'll definitely love being a part of it. Thanks again, peace out, and stay epic, everybody.